Imagine walking into work tomorrow and seeing another kind of human at the next desk. Shorter than you, broader, stronger, a heavy brow over wide, intelligent eyes. Not an ape, not quite you. Another human being from another branch of the family. For most of our species' existence, this was not science fiction. It was simply Tuesday. You were not the only kind of human on Earth, and the story of what happened to the others is stranger and far closer to you than you think. Picture the world 40,000 years ago. Across what is now Europe and Western Asia lived a people we call the Neanderthals. They had been there for hundreds of thousands of years, long before your own ancestors ever arrived, and they were not the dim, slouching cave brutes of old cartoons and bad museum models. That image is simply completely wrong. Neanderthals made fine stone tools. They controlled fire. They cooked. They hunted enormous, dangerous animals at close range with heavy spears, which took nerve and teamwork most of us could never manage. They wore clothing against the cold. They made glue, boiling birch bark into a sticky tar to fix stone points onto wooden shafts, a process so tricky that recreating it taught modern scientists just how much these people understood about their materials. And they cared for their sick and their injured. We know that last part because of a cave called Shanidar in the mountains of northern Iraq, where the archaeologist Ralph Selecki uncovered Neanderthal skeletons in the 1950s. One of them changed how we see them forever. A man who had lived for years with a withered arm, a damaged leg, and likely blindness in one eye. Injuries that should have killed him long before, alone in that hard world. But he didn't die young. Someone fed him. Someone protected him. Someone kept him alive year after year when he could give little back. That is not an animal. That is a person, held inside a community that valued him beyond what he could provide. So here is the question that should haunt you. If they were so like us, so capable, so deeply human, then why are they gone, and why are you the one still here? For a long time we assumed they simply lost, that your ancestors, the modern humans spreading out of Africa, were faster, smarter, better, and the Neanderthals couldn't compete and faded quietly into extinction. A clean and comfortable story. Winners and losers. Us and them. But then we learned to read the dead. And the dead told us something nobody was expecting. A scientist named Svante Pääbo did something that sounds impossible. He recovered DNA from Neanderthal bones, tens of thousands of years old, and painstakingly pieced together their genetic code. The work was so groundbreaking, it won the Nobel Prize, and when he compared that ancient Neanderthal genome to ours, he found a ghost hiding in plain sight. He found Neanderthal DNA living inside modern humans, inside you. If your roots lie anywhere outside Africa, then roughly 1 to 2% of your entire genome was inherited from Neanderthals, not from some distant evolutionary cousin, from actual ancestors. When modern humans and Neanderthals met, across thousands of years, they did not only compete, they had children together, and those children had children. And that line runs unbroken all the way down to the person hearing these words right now. Pääbo and others found something else too. Another vanished people, the Denisovans, known mostly from a finger bone and a few teeth in a Siberian cave, who also left their DNA inside living humans today. There was not just one other kind of human out there. There were several, and we carry pieces of more than one of them. So the Neanderthals never truly vanished. They were absorbed. Their genes for skin and hair, for fighting off diseases their bodies had known for ages, for adapting to cold and altitude, are still doing quiet work in human beings today. They did not all die out. Part of them simply moved in and stayed. And those inherited genes are not just trivia. Some of them shaped whole peoples. The clearest example comes from the Denisovans, that other vanished cousin, high on the Tibetan plateau, where the thin air leaves most of us gasping and sick. The people who live there carry a gene that lets their bodies handle the altitude with ease. When scientists traced where that gene came from, the answer was astonishing. It was a gift from the Denisovans, passed into our ancestors tens of thousands of years ago, and it is the reason an entire population can thrive on the roof of the world today. Other fragments of Neanderthal DNA quietly tune our immune systems, shape how our skin and hair respond to sun and cold, and may even influence how our bodies clot blood or store fat. In other words, these vanished peoples are not just a faint stain in a database. They are still actively shaping how millions of living humans breathe, heal, and survive in the harshest corners of the planet. They lost their place as separate peoples, but pieces of their hard-won adaptations live on, doing real and necessary work inside the bodies of their distant, blended descendants. Inside you. It goes deeper than biology. We now know Neanderthals made marks on cave walls in Spain that may be over 60,000 years old, older than the arrival of modern humans there. They collected pigments and pierced shells, the kind of things you only bother with if a symbol can mean something. The little bone in their throat that anchors the muscles of speech looks just like ours. The picture that has emerged is not of a failed species, but of another way of being human, with its own art, its own care, perhaps its own words, sung around its own fires. Think about what that interbreeding really means, lived out as a life rather than a line in a textbook. Somewhere, tens of thousands of years ago, a modern human and a Neanderthal met, and instead of fear or violence, there was a child. That child was raised, fed, and taught by parents from two different kinds of humanity. And it was not a single freak event. The genetic evidence shows it happened again and again across thousands of years and a wide stretch of the world, often enough to leave a permanent mark in nearly everyone alive outside Africa today. These were not two species that simply met, clashed, and parted. For a long, overlapping age, they were neighbors. They saw each other's fires across the valley. Sometimes they became family. And the Neanderthals were carrying knowledge of their own, hard-won over hundreds of thousands of years in the cold of the north. How to endure winters our African ancestors had never faced. Which plants in that strange land could heal a wound or break a fever. How to bring down the great beasts of the ice. When the two peoples mixed, that inheritance did not simply vanish with them. Some of the buried genes our ancestors picked up from Neanderthals helped their descendants survive in the harsh northern lands the Neanderthals had mastered first. In a real and literal sense, they helped hand us the keys to a world they had owned long before we ever arrived. Now let's return to the real question. What if they had not been reduced to a 1% whisper inside us? What if a full, living population of Neanderthals had survived alongside us all the way to today? It would shatter the single most basic assumption you carry without ever once noticing it. The assumption that the word human means one thing, us, a single kind. In that world, human would have to stretch to hold more than one kind of person, and it would force questions with no easy answers. Would they have the same rights as you? Would we share cities or wall ourselves apart? Our long, ugly habit of inventing reasons to fear and harm people who look only slightly different from us. What would that habit have done with a genuinely different kind of human standing right there? Our history with each other, person to person, is not reassuring. A second human species might have met the very worst that we are capable of. Or it might have humbled us into something better. It is hard to believe you are the lonely center of all creation when another kind of intelligent human stands beside you, building, grieving, burying their dead, caring for their old and their broken, and looking back at you out of a mind as deep and strange as your own. The peculiar loneliness at the heart of our species, the haunting fact that we are the only ones left, might never have set in at all. But that is not the world we were handed. One by one, the other humans went dark. Distant island. Branch after branch on the family tree went cold and still, until only a single living twig remained. You are that twig, the last surviving kind of human on a planet that once held several at once, and the others are not entirely gone. They are folded into you, 1 or 2% at a time, a faint and ancient signal from vanished peoples who once loved and bled and buried their dead, and who chose, at least sometimes, to join their lives and their bloodlines to ours. So imagine that other human at the next desk one more time, shorter, broader, stronger, that heavy brow, those wide and knowing eyes looking back into yours. For almost the entire human story, you would never have had to imagine them at all. You would simply have known them, worked beside them, maybe loved one of them. And here is the strangest, quietest truth of all. A small part of them is here right now, listening to this with you, from somewhere deep inside your own blood.